And I'm Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, and I would like to welcome you to this public informational meeting on the proposed temporary RV safe parking project located at 720 Carpenter Road in Olympia. Per the county's emergency housing ordinance number 16026, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, as the sponsoring agency for this project, must hold a public meeting to provide the community with information about this proposal. The purpose of this meeting is to ensure community members understand the proposal and provide an opportunity for the community to submit questions and receive responses to those questions. The application for the temporary use of this property complies with county code and ordinance. This meeting tonight is scheduled for 6 to 7 p.m. The agenda for this evening is to provide you with a brief overview of the meeting, show a short video on the site, introduce our panelists, and then allow for the panelists to answer the questions that were pre-submitted to our office over the last 2 weeks. If there's time after that, we will look at the chat to determine if there are any follow-up questions we can answer prior to adjourning at 7 p.m. First, I would like to thank everyone who submitted questions and comments to us for this meeting. We understand your frustrations and concerns, and you deserve answers to your questions. I am hopeful this meeting will address your concerns and will provide you with a broader understanding of the project. Our goal is to work together as a region to begin to help address the homelessness issue in our communities, as well as addressing the immediate public health crisis on Ensign Road, where community members and emergency vehicles are struggling to gain access to medical providers, to include St. Peter Hospital. Second, I would like to make it clear this project is phase one of a multi-phase project. This is a temporary step to find permanent supportive housing to those in need in our community. You will hear about this in a video we will be playing shortly. Last, we received questions and comments from over 80 individuals and businesses. Many of those questions have been bunched together and will be answered as a single question this evening. If you submitted specific questions or comments, please be assured we have seen your input and are aiming to answer those questions in our responses. I can attest I have personally read every one of your comments. I hear you and see compassion and concern in your comments and questions. We want this to be successful for the campers as well as the community, and we'll do what we need to do to meet that goal. We know this is not a great situation for everyone, but we are doing the best we can to address the regional issue of homelessness and support our local hospital. I acknowledge this is not a perfect site, and there will never be a perfect site, but the emergency is now, and we have to work through this emergency together. If you have follow-up questions, please put them in the chat function, and if we have time, we will respond to as many of those follow-up questions as we can after the panel responds to the pre-submitted questions. I ask that you please be civil in your comments in the chat, and those who are using foul language or attacking panelists will be removed. Thank you, and I look forward to a great discussion this evening. I would now like to introduce our panelists this evening. When I call your name, please tell us the organization you work for and your position in that organization. And we will start with Darren Goss.
Yeah, good evening, Shelley. Darren Goss, the Chief Executive here at Providence St. Peter Hospital.
Thank you, Darren. Jay Burney.
Thank you, Shelley. Jay Burney, he, him pronouns. I'm the Olympia City Manager.
Ty Gundel.
Thank you, Shelley. Ty Gundel, she, her pronouns, Program Coordinator for Olympia Mutual Aid Partners, or OLIMAP.
Thank you. Tom Webster.
Good evening. Tom Webster, he, him pronouns. I'm the Program Manager for Thurston County's Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention.
Thank you. Keely Marino.
Good evening. Keely Marino, she, her pronouns. I am the Thurston County Homeless Prevention and Affordable Housing Coordinator.
Thank you, Keely. Dave Johnson.
Dave Johnson, I'm a captain with the Thurston County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. Jim Cooper.
I'm so sorry. Jim Cooper has power outage tonight, and so he's going to try to join as soon as he can.
Okay, thank you. Carolina Mejia.
Carolina Mejia, Thurston County Commissioner and Vice Chair for the Regional Housing Council.
Okay, thank you so much to all of our panelists who have joined us this evening. We will now have a brief video to show you to introduce the site and how we will set it up to accommodate the parking, operation, and sanitation needs.
Hello, my name is Keely Marino, and I'm the Thurston County Homeless Prevention and Affordable Housing Coordinator. Thurston County, the City of Olympia, and the Regional Housing Council are collaborating on short-term and long-term solutions to address the unhoused population in Thurston County. The collaboration is to take a multi-phased approach with short-term actions while planning for the long-term solution. In support of Providence St. Peter's Hospital, the immediate short-term need are for the RVs parked along Ensign Road and to move the most vulnerable individuals to a county-owned property on Martin Way and Carpenter Road. This action will open Ensign Road for access to those seeking medical care at facilities along the road. It will also allow for a stable location for the most vulnerable individuals. The opening of the camp at Martin Way and Carpenter Road is temporary and is limited to 15 to 20 campers with a focus on serving seniors and COVID vulnerable individuals. The campers will be selected by the county using strict criteria. All right, this is the site that the 15 to 20 RVs will be located, and I wanted to point out some of the features that we're planning for the site. So behind me, where that lamppost is on this green belt here will be where the portable toilets and hand washing stations and the 24/7 site management team will be here. So we'll have at least 2 people on staff here 24 hours, 7 days a week, and they'll be located close to the fence along this side. We'll have some dumpsters, some 7-yard dumpsters. You can't see it here, but along this fence for easy access for solid waste to come and gather any garbage that is accumulated, hopefully twice a week. And then along the fence, we're intending to have those 15 to 20 RVs. There will be 24/7 monitoring and management at the site. This includes ensuring only those selected to use the site park their RVs at the location. Move-in date tentatively scheduled for mid-December 2021 for 6 months, as per ordinance, with the potential to extend the time through action by the Board of County Commissioners.
I'm Darren Goss, the Chief Executive here at Providence St. Peter Hospital. I wanted just to share that we've been interfacing with Ensign Road for about 2 years now. And as the lower Ensign by Martin Way encampment has continued to grow northeast towards Lilly, those are our only 2 safe passageways for ambulances to get to our emergency room. And as you know, our hospital serves multiple cities here, Tumwater, Lacey, Olympia, and others. And so for us, we must maintain that critical access point, and we recognize and appreciate the city and county for helping us with this endeavor.
Local jurisdictions within the Regional Housing Council are working toward purchasing property at Franz Anderson Road for a longer-term temporary location for RVs to park. The services and management will move from Martin and Carpenter to Franz Anderson to provide a seamless transition for those receiving services. Franz Anderson Road could be used for permanent housing projects in the future to provide permanent supportive housing to more houseless individuals.
Okay, so the first question is for Darren. I know you touched on this a little bit in the video that we just watched, but can you please share why is there such an urgency to move people off Ensign Road?
Yeah, thanks, Shelley. So for us at Providence, this has been a growing concern, as I said in the video, for just under the last 2 years. And for us, we've lived this firsthand of the Ensign Road encampment just continuing to get closer and closer to the hospital. I do have to just say, I recognize as we've lived this, just the how hard this will be and how hard this can be for any location, as Shelley, you had mentioned before. There isn't a perfect location. And this just continues to be an opportunity where we need the help from the county, the city, and the community to help provide that safe access here to the hospital. And so as a tertiary care hospital, it just remains really important for us that we have at least one safe passage for ambulances, our staff, and others accessing the hospital. And so, for example, for those, there's 2 areas on Ensign. The lower Ensign off Martin, that's the larger camp. That's where it's been the longest. And then there's Upper Ensign off of Lilly. And so for many of the businesses on Upper Ensign, you actually have to drive through the encampment to get to those medical services. And for us, that's just creating a very unsafe environment, both for those living on the streets, but then also for ambulances, supply trucks, and people needing to be seen. Also, I just want to share, many of our ambulances have been self-selecting a reroute up to Lilly Road just because of the safety concerns. And as some of you may know, intercity transit has also discontinued bus service on Ensign because of safety concerns. So that's why we've been asking for help from the city and county to make a change.
Thank you, Darren. So there are more than 15 to 20 vehicles on Ensign Road. So is moving this small group really going to help address these issues?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a start. It's not a perfect solution. So we recognize that Lower Ensign off of Martin, there's 50 to 60 campers there. That's one of the main entrance points from South Downtown Olympia here to our emergency room. But Upper Ensign, there's less campers up there, the unhoused individuals, 15 to 20. So actually this will create that at least one safe access point. We're asking for no parking on that Upper Ensign Road. So it is safe to access the hospital. For us, if you have a medical emergency and you have a loved one in an ambulance, it's minutes matter. And for us, seconds matter. And so really, we just want to make sure that we have that safe access to our facilities here.
Thank you. So that's a good segue to this next question for City Manager Jay Burney. How will the City of Olympia ensure that no one just moves back onto Ensign Road after we move these campers out? And how will the City of Olympia be enforcing these parking rules?
Thanks, Shelley. And I'm going to share my screen actually to show a map of the area that we're talking about. I hope everybody can see that. The area that we're talking about where our regionally moved is from Providence Lane up to Lilly Road. We will be installing new no parking signage all along both sides of the road between Providence Lane and Ensign. And we're also planning to install a barrier along the way so that vehicles cannot park there. In addition to that, we are going to be diligent with our parking enforcement team, our homeless response team and coordinators, and our rapid response team to be monitoring this area on a regular basis to make sure that it does not get reestablished with additional RVs. But our intention is to put a barrier up here that would prevent that from happening.
Thank you. This next question is for Tom from Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention. Tom, why did Thurston County choose this specific location? The county has property near the Thurston County Jail and Juvenile Detention Center. Why not just use that property instead? And you're on mute, Tom. Keely,
All right, I apologize. I was on mute. I was planning to close out the previous video that was playing. So thanks for that question. So we have looked at many sites, alternative sites to place these vehicles. So under the Regional Housing Council, we looked at over 200 local government-owned properties throughout the county for their appropriateness for safe parking and other affordable housing and homeless services activities. And this included looking at the county-owned properties near the Thurston County Jail and Detention Center. We do recognize that no site is perfect, and any proposed location will face opposition. The Martin Way and Company Road site was chosen because it's the only viable site that can be reasonably used for this purpose in a cost-effective and time-sensitive manner. The benefits of the site are that it doesn't require any site prep work. It's near a bus line and other services. The site is completely fenced, and the vegetation surrounding the site offers some natural screening of the property. Also, the site is not currently in use for other purposes. We did look at, in looking at the county jail and detention center, we determined they were not viable for multiple reasons, including that both sites would require substantial site preparation time and funding to address stormwater issues, grading, removal of shrubs and bushes, adding lighting and fencing, as well as obtaining applicable permits for those activities. In addition, the location near active detention facilities would negatively impact the operations of those facilities, including impacting use of an access road by detention center staff used to transport juveniles in custody.
Thank you, Tom. We've also been asked, why not use the old Olympia City Hall? And perhaps City Manager Bernie may want to weigh in on this one. And you're on mute, sir.
Sorry, thank you. I clicked it, just didn't unclick for me. Similar to the answer that Tom gave, the City Hall site is our Justice Center, and it is an active site with active users, and those parking lots and those spaces are actively used during the day by employees and by visitors to the Justice Center.
Thank you. And this question is back to you, Tom. Can you tell us what the timeline is for this project?
Yes, so a couple things. First, I want to address one issue that kind of came up related to the timeline, and that is around the issue of pocket gopher study. I know that was brought up earlier this week during the Board of County Commissioners meeting. And so we have been in communication with Community Planning and Economic Development, and they've relayed to us that the project site has a low likelihood of gopher occupancy due to the amount of impervious surfaces and therefore this project does not require a gopher survey. The project is not proposing any ground disturbing activity or structures that would require ground disturbance to be installed. And the project proposing to locate vehicle structures only on existing impervious surfaces. So I did want to address that question around the gophers. So in terms of timing, as Shelley indicated earlier, Thurston County has submitted an application under our emergency housing ordinance to the Community Planning and Economic Development. That was submitted on October 25th. This public meeting was actually rescheduled to be in compliance with the emergency housing ordinance, which requires this information meeting to be held within 10 days of that application submission. CPED has 28 days to review that application, although an actual decision may be a few days before or after that 28-day period. So we are looking for a move-in date, as was indicated in the video, of around mid-December. I'll also mention the county has drafted a memorandum of understanding with the City of Olympia, outlining the plan to address the vehicles on Ensign Road. And the Board of County Commissioners has delayed taking a vote on whether to sign that MOU until next Tuesday after this public information meeting. So for the Martin Way and Carpenter Road site, in addition to the application, there needs to be some hiring of staff and other logistics that need to happen before the actual move-in. So if the application is approved, the temporary permit will allow the site to be occupied or operated for 6 months. Any extension beyond the 6-month time frame requires additional project review and approvals. I also want to, at this time, kind of mention we've also had some questions about recent activity on the site. We've been in contact with Public Works, who's informed us that there has been minor maintenance work done on the property recently to ensure stormwater flow drains properly to the stormwater pond on the site, and that this work was needed to be done and is not related to the RV parking plan. The second phase of the project that was mentioned in the video involves a joint effort between the county and City of Olympia to purchase a piece of property in Olympia for a long-term temporary solution for up to 50 vehicles. And so that would be for up to a 3-year period. So we're anticipating purchasing that property and preparing that site for vehicles to be completed around June or July of 2022. We can't guarantee or promise that this project will not be extended for a few months beyond that 6-month time frame, but this is the time frame that jurisdictions have committed to strive to achieve in their MOU. There is no intention to move additional vehicles to the Martin Way and Carpenter Road site after this first phase of the plan is complete. And any future use of the property will need to go through the applicable permitting process before any new activity could occur.
Thank you, Tom. A follow-up question to all the information that you just shared is, how is this site being funded and how much will it cost?
So the site is being funded, or this project will be funded by a couple different sources. One is Providence Hospital has generously donated $100,000 or provided a grant of $100,000 to help offset those costs. We're still working on the final budget. But right now we're estimating the total cost to operate the site for 6 months is approximately $400,000 to $450,000. The largest cost of that will be staffing for 24/7 staffing to be provided for those 6 months. But this also includes funding for hygiene, potable water, and garbage services. There will be no site improvements to the property outside of those needed to comply with the fire code, such as some signage. The county portion of those funds will be paid for out of the county's one-time American Rescue Plan Act funding.
Okay, thank you so much, Tom. And I'd like to just take this moment very briefly to welcome Council Member Jim Cooper from City of Olympia to the panel tonight. Thank you for joining us, Jim. This next question is for Keely and Ty. Can you please share who is determining who will move to this site and what is the criteria that will be used?
Thank you, Shelley. So OLYMAP, as the organization that will be responsible for site operations, will also be largely responsible for determining who will be moving to the site. However, the county does have final say over who may or may not be relocating to the site. Also, I just wanted to say that all of our decisions related to site operations, including the criteria that we'll be using to determine who can move to the site, are grounded in our goals for this project, which include facilitating a site that minimizes and mitigates harmful impacts of unsheltered homelessness for everyone impacted by the situation, and also that supports some of our most vulnerable people currently living along Ensign Road and accessing a safer, healthier, more stable place to find shelter, connect to services, and hopefully housing. So there are 3 core criteria that prospective residents will need to meet in order to be considered eligible to move to the site. They'll need to be currently living in an RV or vehicle along Ensign Road. They must be at least 18 years of age or older, and they must also be willing to sign and abide by the site's code of conduct and community agreements. And as we are all aware, there are many more people living along Ensign Road than we can relocate to this site, and also more than 18 people who would meet that criteria. So with the goals I talked about in mind, and this, we are prioritizing people for limited spaces who are elderly, who have high medical vulnerability or are particularly vulnerable to COVID-19, who have high vulnerability due to other factors that could reasonably be mitigated at the new site, folks who are currently working with our Ensign Road caseworkers who will also be transitioning to this new site, and folks who are already sharing community with others along Ensign Road with visions and commitments and values that align with this new site. I just want to say that we at OLYMAP are really committed to doing everything possible to ensuring the success of this site. And just to note that the people relocating to this site will not be strangers to us. The people that will be relocating here are people we know, many of whom we have worked with for months and months. And I'm confident that the people who will be moving here will share our commitment to wanting to make this temporary site as safe and as stable and secure as possible. Keely, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So several questions that have come in and comments are concerns around sex offenders. So I wanted to say that every shelter provider or any of our homeless service providers that are contracted through the county all have a requirement that they do not serve or house level 2 or 3 sex offenders in any of their programs. That includes low barrier sites. All low barrier locations have that same requirement in their agreements and in their policies and procedures. And names can be, as a standard practice, names are run through the National Sex Offender Registry to determine that.
Thank you, Keely. Ty, you mentioned community agreements. What rules do people have to follow to be in this site? And what happens if they don't follow the rules?
Thank you, Shelley. Really important question. So obviously working to ensure the safety of everyone living at the site, as well as others who might be impacted, is of the utmost importance to us, and community agreements and accountability are important parts of that. So as I previously mentioned, in order to become eligible to be able to move to the new site, all prospective residents will need to sign a code of conduct and will be expected to abide by that code of conduct agreement for the duration of their stay. The code of conduct is made up of 5 agreements, and those agreements are to keep personal spaces clean and tidy. Use of any illicit drug or substance on site is prohibited. People will be required to use the appropriate restroom facilities. So essentially, if their personal restroom facilities are unable to be appropriately pumped or dumped, then they will be expected to use the designated facilities on site. Also, there will be the expectation that people respect the space, each other, the belongings of others in the neighborhood. So no theft, no destruction of property, not disturbing the neighbors, etc. And of course, violence is something that would not be tolerated. I'll also add that residents with pets or animals will be expected to ensure that their animals are under control at all times, and there will be a designated area for pets to relieve themselves and expectations around owners managing animal waste. As for accountability measures, so specific accountability measures in response to rule violations will vary depending on the rule that was violated, the severity, and the frequency of the violations. But for example, the accountability measures could range from signing a behavior agreement or action plan, loss of specific privileges, up to, of course, expulsion from the site. And again, safety really is the highest priority for us, and we see community agreements and accountability as a really critical part of that, and especially having accountability measures that are consistent, just, reasonable, and effective.
Thank you so much, Ty. This has been touched on a little bit, but Kaylee, can you share a little bit more about how will sanitation and hygiene be handled at this site?
Absolutely. So with our scattered site pilot program, we have a memorandum of understanding, I believe, or an ILA between the City of Olympia and our office to provide hygiene services and solid waste removal. And so that will be extended to this site. And so there will be 2 7-yard dumpsters that are on the site that will be for solid waste. Any solid waste on site will be collected there. And will be removed as needed, hopefully no more than twice a week, but will be removed as needed. There will be portable toilets, including an ADA accessible toilet on site for the residents to use, and those will also be serviced on a regular basis. We will have potable water on site. The potable water will be provided by the City of Olympia. They have potable water at their neighboring or adjacent property. And so we'll have a water truck with hopefully a 500-gallon water tank that will be delivered down to the site for residents to use and have access to in terms of potable water. We, as Ty had mentioned, there is an agreement that if they do not, and it's in the code of conduct, that if their vehicle is not operational in the ways of being able to, if their septic tank is not operable, they will agree to use the appropriate toilets will be provided and then serviced, as well as if they have a vehicle that's operational and and their septic is operational, then they can use their own individual toilet facilities in their vehicle, and we'll be taking those down to the lot to get them serviced as needed. So a lot of that is our continued partnership with City of Olympia and the Scattered Site Pilot Project.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. This next question is back to you, Tom. You shared earlier about the longer-term plan of potentially relocating to the Franz Anderson site. What stops you or the county from moving a new group of people to this Carpenter Road site after this group moves to a Franz Anderson site or another location?
So thanks for that, Shelley. So one of the key things is what we're applying for is a temporary use permit of the Martin Lane Carpenter Road site. So the permit will only allow us for 6 months. So any future use, as I indicated earlier, would need to be a completely separate process, and there would need to be an application process to community planning and economic development and through the county. So We are only requiring or asking for a temporary use permit for 6 months. Anything beyond that would need to go through a whole new and entirely different permitting process.
Okay, thank you. This next question is for Captain Dave Johnson from the Thurston County Sheriff's Office. We've received multiple questions about enforcement because of the fear of increased crime. So if crime does increase in this area, how will the Thurston County Sheriff's Office support the community and business members?
Thanks, Shelley. The number one priority for the Sheriff's Office is public safety. That's the safety of our residents, businesses, community members, and the residents of the proposed RV encampment. The Sheriff's Office will respond to calls and complaints in accordance with our office policies. Our response will be based on priority of the calls and the availability of our personnel. We will monitor the activities and calls of service and adjust our response accordingly.
Thank you so much, Captain Johnson. This next question is back to you, Keely. Can you please explain what the next steps are in this process?
Yes, so as Tom has mentioned, the application was submitted on the 25th of October. We did submit an updated site plan on the 29th of October. So that may extend the review time. But at this point, all of the work that has gone into collaborating with the City of Olympia, talking with the Regional Housing Council tech team, which includes staff members from Lacey and Tumwater, City of Olympia, and the county, and talking with, making plans with Olympia Mutual Aid Partner around their code of conduct, and their operation and safety plan. It's in the hands of community planning and economic development. So it's in active review at this point, and we anticipate hearing whether it's approved or denied by the end of the 28 to 30 day time period, and then we will go from there. We are just kind of in a holding pattern to see how that application approval process goes. We did everything we could to ensure that that code line by line was addressed specifically. Every T was crossed and I dotted to the best of our ability to ensure that we were meeting the code and the ordinance requirements for this application. So at this point, this is our first round. One of our first milestones was just getting the application in. Our next most important was having this public information meeting, and now we wait for that approval or denial.
Thank you so much, Keely. So at this point, we do have time to answer questions from the chat, and I want to thank members of the community so much for joining us on this meeting tonight. And I will now review questions from the chat and ask the panelists to answer as many as we can. And also, I will just ask that our public information officer from Thurston County, Megan, do you have any comments or anything else that we should share before we begin answering questions from the public?
I just wanted to give Councilman Cooper and Commissioner Mejia a chance to provide any feedback prior to answering the question.
Thank you so much, Megan. We'll start with Commissioner Mejia.
Thank you, Shelley. And thank you again, everyone who attended. I've been writing down your questions as we've gone along, and we will be addressing your questions. The reason we did it in this way, where you heard some of the questions, were because these were the most common questions we received from the many emails and comments that we got. Now we will be addressing your questions on the chat, so thank you again for being patient with us as we go through this process.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mejia. Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Thurston County, for your leadership in this conversation. Thank you, Providence St. Peter Hospital, for your partnership in this work. I am confident that this proposal, as it moves forward, will be both compassionate and hold people accountable. And that's the way we do work. That's the way OLYMAP is working, and the way site managed leadership works very well. So I really look forward to getting this move done if the permits allow, and if not, we'll go back to the drawing board and figure out the next steps. We know that we have to get these folks off of the front steps of our emergency room, and then we'll get the next larger project underway to clear out the rest of Ensign Road. We're on the way on that path, and looking forward to increased capacity to serve our most vulnerable residents across Thurston County, as well as Interfaith Works brings on the first two designed and built for shelter projects ever in Thurston County in the next month or month and a half. So a lot of things going on, and a lot of projects underway, and we just appreciate the entire region's support for a problem that is national and very difficult for all of us to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Cooper. I will now pull questions from the chat. Again, if you are joining us and you have questions that you have not heard answered tonight, please feel free to answer them in the chat. If we do not get through all the questions tonight, we will be collecting all of these questions and providing answers and posting them on our website. But I will go ahead and start from the top as I see them. If I see questions that have already been answered as part of another question, I may skip that question by. So the first question is from Amanda Meyer, and I will ask Tom this question because you referenced the over 200 properties that had been considered. What about the large empty parking lot at a place like Shopco or over at the brewery property?
So I'll say we looked at county or city-owned properties. So we did not look at public properties. So without knowing specifically what properties you're referring to, I don't know if those are public or private properties. And I'll admit that I haven't memorized all 200 properties that we looked at. We did go through a scoring criteria in terms of where the properties were, the size of the property, whether near transit, access to infrastructure and utilities. But our review was primarily focused on publicly owned properties, and we did not look at private sector properties.
Thank you so much, Tom. And I believe the brewery property is located in Tumwater, and Tumwater jurisdiction representatives are not with us tonight, but any further information that we have, we can share in our FAQs later.
Shelley, can I add just a small bit to that?
Absolutely.
So in Olympia, we have tried to pursue multiple commercial properties for that purpose and have yet to find a willing renter. So that's not what people use their commercial property for.
Thank you so much. Okay, this next question is from Daniel Stesser. And again, I will apologize if I mispronounce any names in the chat. We are recording and capturing everything in the chat here. So and I'll ask Tom again for you to answer this one. The Franz Anderson Road site is part of what's commonly called the jungle. It is neither cleared of trees nor paved. How soon can you predict you'd be able to make it support RVs? How many people already living there would be displaced or moved to make room for the RVs?
And I may ask Jay Burning to help with answering this question. The property that is being kind of examined is not what is kind of considered in the jungle. It is separate from that property. There is some site work. The land is largely cleared. So there is less site work than needed. So it is separate from what is kind of traditionally known as the jungle. But I would ask Jay if he has anything to add regarding that property. City of Olympia is taking the lead in the acquisition of that property.
Yeah, the only thing I might add to what Tom said is there's a question around how long to get this ready to go. And it's our intention, again, within that 6 to 7 month time frame to have these individuals on the Carpenter Road site that we could both acquire and get the site prepped and ready to move those RVs that are there, along with other RVs on Ensign Road, over to the new site. So somewhere within that 6 to 7 month time frame, there's a lot of work to do between now and then once we get the site acquired and get some design work done and all those processes in place. But our intention is to make that happen within the 6 to 7 month time frame that we've been allotted here.
Thank you so much. And the next question, it may also be a question for City of Olympia. Why are we not able to find a location in the City of Olympia that these individuals can be relocated to? This would only require the city to change the allocation of their services already provided rather than increase the workload of the deputy sheriffs and Lacey Fire. And that's a comment or question by Newt Lehman.
Councilmember Cooper, you want me to start on this? Okay. I want to lean back on what Tom has talked about, and we did evaluate a lot of sites across all the jurisdictions to find which one might be best established. As Tom mentioned, the Carpenter Road site is fenced. It is in a place that has some natural shrubbery that can kind of conceal the site. It is the best site in terms of the criteria that we established for looking at a possible location. The one thing I might add for context here, I think is really important, is that all of the vehicles that are on Ensign Road did not originate from the city of Olympia. This is a regional problem. The RVs have come from Tumwater, they've come from Lacey, they've come from state properties. They've not just come from Olympia. This is a regional issue. It's a regional hospital. It's a regional issue affecting all of the cities. We have come together as a part of a regional housing council to pool our resources and work together to try to work with this issue. We're committed to this work. I know how frustrating this can be. It's a very difficult issue that all of us are trying to solve. It is beyond any one city. It is going to take a regional effort to work this issue. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Keely, Daniel Stesser has another question. Is there capacity at the Carpenter Road site to support moving RVs there from other locations? And perhaps Ty, also, you may want to weigh in on this. Could those two FTEs support more people?
So thank you for that question. We have, working with Public Works while we were planning the site and with our fire marshal, we determined that in terms of meeting fire code, that the number of vehicles is pretty finite in order to have an access road for emergency vehicles to come through for service providers such as solid waste, removing the solid waste, servicing the portable toilets, et cetera, and also allowing for at least 20 feet from nose to tail separation between each of the RVs and or vehicles. So each of the vehicles must be separated by 20 feet in order for an emergency vehicle to get between. And to ensure that if for some reason there were to be a fire that were to occur, it wouldn't just hop from vehicle to vehicle. So in meeting fire code, the maximum we can get at this point is 18. So we're not able to accommodate beyond that at that site.
Thank you. And just to clarify, Keely, the RVs being relocated are only coming from those currently on Ensign Road, not from any other location.
Correct. This is a direct response to the needs of our regional hospital.
Thank you. And Ty, anything that you would like to add about the capacity to support more people with services?
Yeah. Well, Keely pretty much said it all, but just as folks know, there's definitely far more than 18 households living along Ensign Road. So since we don't foresee being able to relocate everybody from Ensign Road there, pretty sure nobody would be coming from any other site. So it'll really be limited just to those that part of the population along Ensign Road. And also, but just so people know that we will be continuing to provide case management and site support services to people living along Ensign Road. So the people that are still there that don't relocate to this site will still be receiving ongoing services and support through our organization.
Thank you. And to Terry Harper, I'm trying to move through as many questions as possible tonight on the chat. The next question is an employee of the medical facility across from the hospital spoke at the commissioner meeting Tuesday. She stated that their employees and customers feel unsafe coming and going. These buildings have security and many staff members. How will small neighboring businesses with only 1 or 2 staff members and no security feel safe? And I may ask Commissioner Mejia if there's any comment you would like to make on that, followed by Captain Johnson.
Thank you. I'll let Captain Johnson go first.
I'm sorry, I missed that question. Sorry about that.
Sure, no problem. The question's regarding safety for those in neighboring businesses who only have 1 or 2 staff members. How may they feel safe?
Again, it's all going to be contingent on our staffing as to whether or not we can assist or get area patrols through that area. Right now, we are limited staffing in the area, and we'll try to provide as much additional security as possible, but I don't count on any other resources being allocated to there.
Commissioner Mejia?
Can I do a follow-up question? Will that change, Captain Johnson, with the 3 sheriff's deputies that just will be allocated through this budget?
It may. We'll have to see what type of call ratio we have increased to, if there is any.
And thank you so much, Commissioner Mejia and Captain Johnson. And Keely, I see that your hand is raised. Would you like to weigh in on this one?
Yes, thank you. So one thing that is really crucial difference between what is Ensign Road and what will be the site is site control. Olympia Mutual Aid Partners has been on Ensign Road for the last only 3 months and have done taken tremendous steps towards engaging people in referrals and case management and getting people like into housing and or what have you, but they don't have site control. This is a controlled area. It has fencing. They will be controlling who's coming and going at all times. The gates will be shut at all times. They will have eyes on the gate. There will be rules and there will be consequences for not following rules. That is not tenable on a site that is not where there's no site control. And that I would look towards my City of Olympia colleagues towards what that looks like, sanctioned and unsanctioned, like with their Plum Street Village and how that looks for them and how that managed site with a gate with 24/7 supervision and site control looks very different than any encampment in any part of Thurston County.
Thank you so much, Keely. And if you could please answer the next question submitted by Chris Powell. What is the zoning of this property in question? Chris says, last I checked, it is not zoned for an RV park.
That is an excellent question that I would have to, it's not zoned for an RV park, but it is a zone that I'd have to defer to community planning and economic development on that. It is a multiple use zone. However, when we looked at this site in 2019 for the first time when we were having these discussions, it was very clearly a multi-use site, not zoned for a formal RV camp, but this is not a formal RV camp.
Thank you so much. And any questions that we are not able to answer with our panelists tonight, we will answer by follow-up on the website. Okay, next question is for Ty. Why haven't your partner churches offered to take on 5 campers per church? If they did, would that problem be solved?
Yeah, so we do work with a number of faith communities and churches throughout Thurston County. However, as has been true for really many years, is that the churches who would have some interest in being able to take folks onto their property are just simply over capacity or don't have the property to do so. We work closely with faith communities to provide support to the other sites and folks that we work with in the ways that they can. So like providing supportive services, funds for things like safe heating and warming equipment and things like that. But I just think it's been true for quite a while now in our community that our faith communities who have always really been called upon to step up into these situations and have time and time again, just don't have that capacity right now or really the support available to be able to take on something like that, despite any desire they may have to do so. And I know they really do care. And there's a lot of faith communities and churches out there that are doing all they can already to support our folks.
Thank you so much, Ty. This next question from Priscilla Terry, I'm going to ask City of Olympia to address. Why not install barriers now to make sure that safety for patients who are also vulnerable people is addressed immediately?
Yeah, the short answer is the place where we want to put the barriers is where the RVs are now. So the barriers are going to be placed within the parking lane to prevent, again, from future parking from happening there. So until we can get the vehicles moved out to the Carpenter Road site, we don't have the ability to put the barriers in place.
Thank you. The next question from Simone Grant. I'm going to bat back to you, Ty. The Ensign Road site is littered with trash. Is there a plan to deal with the health hazard related to that? And how will the management prevent the new site from becoming littered as well?
Yeah, thank you. So kind of two parts here, in City of Olympia might also want to jump in for the part with Ensign Road, but for as far as where folks are right now, the City of Olympia holds a part of the contract for supporting the site with like garbage management, portable restrooms, all of that. We collaborated with the City of Olympia and the residents to do a really successful cleanup a few weeks ago. And of course, the ongoing work is like maintaining that cleanliness and maintaining those expectations, which absolutely is an ongoing process. But our understanding and with our partners, the City of Olympia and residents, is to be continuing to do that work with regular cleanups, more provision of cleaning supplies, and also, stepping up more accountability measures as far as how folks are handling garbage on site. Residents are a huge part of that, as well as supporting the site and coming up with accountability measures, expectations, community agreements, all of that. At the new site, of course, as Keely already mentioned, a huge difference will be the fact that we have 24/7 staffing support every day. That alone will make the greatest difference, because that means having staff on site 24/7 to support the residents in adhering to the code of conduct, which includes the expectation that sites are kept clean and tidy. There'll be a dumpster on site, and has been mentioned, that'll be emptied multiple times. And we'll also have our staff being able to support residents that may be less physically able to move their garbage. Again, as mentioned, a lot of folks are older and have some physical limitations, but we'll be providing that support and providing supplies to make sure that people can upkeep cleanliness in their personal spaces.
Thank you so much, Ty. And we're going to keep going and have you answer the next couple of questions from Phil Sherman and Newt Lehman, and I'm going to kind of combine them because they're similar. Can you explain the specific accountability for site rule violations? How are they determined? Why, who, etc.? Would affected neighbors have input to that? And what happens when these codes of conduct are not followed and violated and the residents don't follow the accountable measures? Who will be enforcing the removal of these individuals from the site, and how will that legally be accomplished?
Yeah, so keep me on track if I forget some of those questions while answering. But starting with the specific accountability measures. So like I said, a lot of that will depend on like the rule that is violated. For example, somebody who has an issue with keeping their space clean may not be kicked out of the site that first time, but may be expected to sign a behavior agreement or action plan, committing to them changing that in order to be able to stay at the site. And then at the point, if they were not able to do that, then other steps would be considered. Whereas for code of conduct violations related to something like violence or destruction of property are much more likely to lead to immediate questioning whether that person should continue staying on the site or expulsion. So that's how that'll be determined, and that'll be also in partnership with, when it comes down to it, it's OLYMAP that will be responsible for guaranteeing site safety and ensuring adherence to the code of conduct. We also, though, just as part of our approach, really do what we can to involve residents in that, especially because they are living there, and really it is very important to them that the site is safe and stable, and they also want to see other people living there adhering to those codes of conduct. So they will be involved in determining, if folks are at a point where they need to be asked to leave the site. As far as if somebody gets to the point of needing to be expelled from the site, we would need to be relying on our partners for that. As OLYMAP, we may have the ability to trespass people, but we don't have the ability to forcibly remove somebody from the property. So of course, that would be the point where we would have to bring in our other partners, and maybe we can hand that off to the county or the sheriff's department to talk about that piece.
Captain Johnson, anything to add to that?
We'll assist how we can, but we have to follow the laws that are in place, and there may have to be an eviction process that occurs.
Thank you. This next question is from Mary Wharton, and I will bat this over to Tom. I think to start with, how many campsites might there be at the Franz Anderson site?
So right now, we're looking at approximately a maximum of 50 at Franz Anderson. Once we get into that site, I think, once again, there'll be fire codes that we'll need to comply with, and we'll have to look at what's kind of the usable site. So that's still a little bit to be determined, but in the MOU that we hope to sign with the city of Olympia, I believe it's at a maximum of 50 RVs at that site.
Thank you. And the next question from the anonymous attendee, what I'm hearing is if someone from this RV park steals from me, they will just get removed and I won't get my property back. Anything further to add to that, Ty or Captain Johnson, to address that concern?
Actually, first, that question reminded me of one of the questions you did ask I didn't get to, which was whether or not the neighbors could be involved in things and all. And I just want to say that it's really a critical part of like OLYMAP's approach to involve like all people impacted by the sites in our operations. So that includes neighbors, that includes our partners and stakeholders and residents. And our projects with supporting encampments before in site operations and management have involved bringing neighbors to the table to be a part of that process. And in our opinion, when we have input from neighbors, that really does make all the difference. So we welcome input and involvement. And then also, I would just say, I mean, again, while we can't necessarily like guarantee what happens with property if it's stolen, in the case that one of our residents were to have stolen property and they were still in possession of that, we would hope that as part of like the reparations and accountability process, that an expectation would be that that's returned. Again, there's only so much control we have over, you know, what happens between when something is stolen and what happens next. But I will say that we have like worked with residents to facilitate the return of property to other like at other sites before. That's something that has happened and that we've been able to successfully do.
Thank you so much. The next question, I'm sorry, Captain Johnson, anything you wanted to add to that?
No, it's just that if a crime's reported, we will investigate.
Thank you. Again, Ty, for you, will individuals with active drug addiction be on site? And will individuals with serious persistent mental illness with untreated psychosis be on site?
Thank you, Shelley. Real quick, I see Keely's hand up. Keely, were you trying to add anything or should I dive into this?
I can do both.
Okay, go for it.
Is that okay, Shelley?
Yeah, go for it.
Keely, I apologize. I missed
No, it's okay. Number one, these are funds that are coming through the county. And so I'm going to go for this current question backwards, that we operate out of best practices that are set and sent to us. We operate from the direction of our continuum of care, which is the Department of Commerce, which has very specific guidelines around what you can do under the funding. Those come from federal recommendations, and that is best practices. You don't just exclude anyone from a program because of a pre-existing condition, such as any kind of substance condition or mental health condition. That is not something in the guidelines of our funding that we are funding all agencies within Thurston County to do, that they are not allowed to exclude people. For that question. Number two, it is really important to understand that Olympia Mutual Aid Partners are contracted to do what they do best, which is case management and site management of this project. They are not enforcement. So just to be really clear, like they work on partnerships and communication with partners and neighbors and residents, but they do not have enforcement capabilities.
Thank you so much for that, Keely. And with that, we are nearing the end of our scheduled time for this public meeting. I know many of you have submitted questions in the chat, and we have not had time to get to answer all of your questions. We will be answering those questions online. And so I would like to close this meeting by saying,
could we extend the meeting for 15 more minutes so we can get a little bit more questions in?
Yes, I'm happy
Is that
to.
okay with everyone?
I'm happy to extend the meeting if any of our panelists are unable to stay on. They have committed to be here until 7 o'clock. So if you are not able to stay on, you may feel free to log off. If you are able to stay on as a panelist, we'll get through as many questions as we can with the panelists present. And again, we will be having facts and questions posted online if we're not able to get to them. But I'm available and happy to continue this meeting to hear more comments from members of the public for 15 more minutes until 7:15. Okay, I'm going to return to the chat and continue down in the order that they have been submitted. Thank you again to everyone from the public and to our panelists for your time to extend right now. So the next question is, if this application is denied, what will happen to the people on Ensign Road? Keely, do you want to try to take a...
Well, honestly, I would look to my colleagues at the City of Olympia and Providence St. Peter. I mean, we'll definitely, and I'll speak, I don't mean to speak for Ty, but Olympia Mutual Aid Partner is going to serve these individuals, whether they're on Ensign or they're at Martin Way or both. So that will continue regardless, but I can't address the other part of the question.
I'm happy to jump in here, Shelley. I think the shorter answer is that we will need to find another alternative. Keeping it status quo as is not acceptable. It will not work. It's too much of a conflict that's created with Providence. Providence has been very patient in this process, but they've been very direct in the impacts that this has on the hospital, and it's incumbent upon us to find a solution here. So I'm very hopeful that this site will get approved and we'll be able to move in that direction. But if it does not, in the interim, the site will continue to be served by OLYMAP and by the City of Olympia with our scattered site resources that we've committed to this project until we can find another solution. But finding another solution is an absolute.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Darren. And then, of course, in the interim, I mean, the goal here is to get these people onto that long-term site. So that will still be in the works, just if this does not work out, the short-term solution does not work out.
And from a Providence perspective, we'll continue to work with the city and county on a solution. Status quo is not acceptable right now. And I encourage anyone, if you're driving down Ensign, you'll see what we mean. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all the panelists who helped answer that question. How many individuals will live in each RV?
I can take that one. So that will be dependent on the RV. There are no RVs on Ensign Road that have more than 4 people living in them. And the ones that we are currently on our list have between 1 to 3 folks that will be living there. So it'll be different depending on each household, but that's what we would expect with not going over the cap amount at the site, of course. So that's something will be taken into consideration. So we're not going over the 20 to 25 or 20 people.
Thank you so much. The next question is that someone had mentioned earlier in the evening tonight that an updated site plan was submitted. Keely, can you explain what change was made from the original site plan?
Absolutely. So the original site plan made accommodations for the potential of there needing to be a 20-foot buffer on the east side of the encampment for stormwater. As was discussed earlier, that was determined that there's already a stormwater, I'm not going to use the right word because it's not my remediation, for already on site. So that was not necessary to address on site. So that made some room. So that created some room for more vehicles. So the original site map could only accommodate 13 vehicles. And they were oriented at a diagonal for that site plan. But with the removal of that 20-foot buffer, we were able to turn them from vertical to, or from diagonal to vertical and then move them back closer to the fence line on the east side, which opened up more space. We also moved, in the video, that was the original idea of how the staff would be set up. There is a concrete pad at the back end or the north end of that site that is already in existence. And so the staff will be located over there. Portable toilets will be located over there. And the dumpsters will all be located on that concrete pad so that there would not be any necessary site improvements. We would not have to build a concrete slab. It's already there. So we just moved the site amenities for both staff and for residents to that north side concrete slab that also opened up more room for more vehicles. And that's how we were able to move from only 13 to upwards of 18 vehicles on site. So that's what was updated.
Thank you so much. And that application that was submitted is a public document that is available, correct, Keely?
That's as far as I understand, yes.
Thank you.
And the code of conduct, all of this will be uploaded on the Regional Housing Council site, including the criteria that was listed tonight upon final approval of the plan, I believe.
Thank you so much. Moving along through the questions here, John Pettit had a comment based on the estimated cost of $450,000 for the time frame that equals over $4,100 per month to provide the parking spaces. Next question by Stuart Ridgway. Are the funds for this effort in the county budget? Was anything cut to free up the funds? And I will direct that to Tom Webster and follow up by Commissioner Mejia if necessary.
So there was no cut to any existing budget for this fund. So out of the ARPA funds that the county received, the county has set aside, and Commissioner Mejia can correct me if I'm wrong, preliminary set aside $5 to $9 million to address housing issues in the community. And so this will come out of that initial allocation that the commissioners have identified to support housing activities with those funds.
Thank you very much. Terry Harper, thank you for your comment. I'm going to, in the interest of time, stick to questions only. We are recording all of these comments. Mindy Ridgway, what about all the homeless encampment all over and constantly causing fires and violence? Is this being addressed? This is a pretty general question. There's maybe several people on the panel tonight that could potentially answer that. City of Olympia, Keely.
So I can speak to what our office does, which is contract with homeless service providers that are acting under the strategies of our state-approved 5-year homeless crisis response plan. So yes, in that we have, as far as our office, we can account for in our office, you know, we have contracted outreach workers outside of Olympia Mutual Aid Partners that are engaging with residents in all of the encampments in order to fast track them, hopefully into some kind of housing project or any other service that they might need. So on the service delivery side, that is occurring in all of the encampments. It's a fairly collaborative, it's a very collaborative, fairly coordinated effort on that side. So I can, but my office can address.
Shelley, I would just offer that the City of Olympia has a full-time homeless response coordinator. We have allocated funding out of our American Recovery plans to support the scattered site efforts that are underway. We want to continue to work in partnership with the county on all the sites the scattered site is serving. I think it's important to recognize that the scattered site program and OLYMAP are supporting more than just this location with their work. Case management is an active part of the work that they're doing. We are working at as fast a pace as I think is even possible to get people served and to get them into other alternatives. You know, I'll land where I began, in that this is a huge problem that's much bigger than any one jurisdiction or any of us really together can solve. It needs more assistance at the state level. We need more assistance around substance abuse facilities and mental health facilities. Those are not problems that cities and the county can solve by themselves. And so, again, it is a large problem. It is straining resources, but we have all dedicated resources to this and are committed to continue that dedication of resources as long as we need to both serve people humanely and protect the community at the same time.
Thank you so much.
And Kaylee, I'll also add, I'm the chair of the Clean Air Agency. And so every time there's a fire in an encampment in Olympia, the Clean Air Agency shows up because people complain about their air quality and continues to look at enforcement action, even on our houseless population. And we continue to keep that under control as much as we possibly can.
Thank you so much to all the panelists who helped answer that question. Next question by Terry Harper. How come we were not formally notified about the MOU vote this past Tuesday? Providence people were there. They had reserved seating. Commissioner Mejia, do you want to answer this question?
Yes. I believe Providence came after we received several comments from several citizens just outlining their concerns. And Darren came just to kind of provide the insight on the impact that Providence is receiving.
Thank you. And I will just add that the Board of County Commissioners agenda is posted on the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners website. Members of the public can view what is on the agenda, what the Board of County Commissioners will be considering, and public comment is always welcome at 2 p.m. every Tuesday. This next question is a comment. Amanda Meyer, thank you very much for your comment. Moving on to questions. James Stanton, why no panel representation, input, or response from the City of Lacey tonight on this plan? And I will answer that the City of Lacey was invited to participate. They were unable to send a representative to participate on the panel tonight, but they did provide written comment, which will be available on the Regional Housing Council website as well. Next question, Melody Coiner. If a resident is expelled or merely leaves, where will they go, and will they be allowed to set up camp in Lacey? Keely, do you want?
I can.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that's the outcome that one of the things that we all have to deal with whenever somebody is expelled from any shelter, camp, mitigation site, is the question of where they will go from there. I can say that OLIMAP will be doing everything within our own power to make sure that if somebody's expelled from the site, that they're connected with another place to go, that we would be relying on our relationships with other providers, other camp communities, et cetera. But outside of that, if there are no spaces, it is hard to know where people will go. And people usually, but I would say most folks that we see do try and go where people are already staying. But we will do everything we can to make sure that somebody's connected to another place, knowing that oftentimes that will not be possible.
Thank you so much, Ty. Next question from John Pettit. Is it a good value to park each RV for a cost of over $4,000 per month each? Keely?
I can answer that. So for any project that is serving the unhoused community, if it is 24/7, it is going to be expensive. To operate a 24/7 shelter in our community, whether you're serving 2 people or 100 people, will cost at the minimum $800,000 if you're staffing it to safety, which is what this community very clearly is asking for, is a safe environment. That costs money in terms of staffing and in terms of supplies, but primarily staffing to ensure that there is line of sight, oversight, and proper handling of escalations and whatnot. So yeah, it is expensive. And we're not going to get out of this situation without spending a lot more money than that. So if we were serving 5 RVs or we're serving 100 RVs, it would cost at least this amount of money.
Thank you, Keely. The next question is from Brandon Block. The president of Thurston County Deputy Sheriff's Association testified at the Board of County Commissioners meeting on Tuesday that their union is opposed to this project. Does this view represent the Sheriff's Office as a whole? And I will ask Captain Johnson to answer that question.
The comments made at the Thurston County Board of Commissioners meeting Tuesday were the opinions of the Thurston County Deputy Sheriff's President. Sheriff Snaza has expressed his opinion of this encampment in the past. At this point in time, if the commissioners make a decision to move forward on this project, it's our job to ensure public safety.
Thank you so much, Captain Johnson. And we are now at the end of our time. We extended this to 7:15 this evening. I apologize that we are not able to get to all of the questions in the chat. I see we have 76 questions in the chat. We will be again capturing these, posting the questions and answers on the Regional Housing Council website. Thank you very much for submitting them. All the panelists will also be reviewing these questions. So the fact that we did not get to them today does not mean that they are not important to us. So thank you so much. I would again like to thank our panelists and the public who submitted the pre-questions for this meeting tonight, as well as all of those who have joined us on the Zoom. This is a very important project, and I hope the information we provided this evening addresses questions and concerns that you may have about supporting the population and helping to relieve the issue on Ensign Road. Our staff are available for additional questions as we move through this project. Please visit Thurston County's Regional Housing Council webpage for contact information and to learn about updates to this project. We will also include a link to this video of this meeting on the website, and we'll be working on posting the written FAQ to include all the questions that we were not able to answer on the chat this evening. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
One sec. Sorry, can I add an extra comment? I always come in last minute. I apologize.
Absolutely, Commissioner Mejia.
So I just want to thank again everyone who came here tonight. I have cleared my schedule for Monday, and I will be going to the Martin Carpenter area to go talk to some of the business owners. So any of the business owners that are here, I will be stopping Monday at 10 a.m. through that site, or any of the homeowners that are nearby. If you would like to talk to me, I will be in that site during that time. So again, thank you to everyone.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mejia, and my apologies for not allowing any of the panelists to say any parting words. Is there any other panelists tonight that would like to say some parting words before we officially adjourn this meeting? Keely.
You and me, Commissioner Mejia. So one final thing, just a really quick, I think it's it's minor, but a really important clarification that the city of Lacey was invited and they declined to attend, and they asked if they could just make a comment, but just to make, that's just a minor, just like a little tiny distinction, but I think it is important that they are busy on this evening, but they also did decline.
Thank you, Keely. Any other final comments? Darren, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I just want to thank the panelists and the community that's chiming in here. From a Providence perspective, we recognize how hard this is. And, you know, the help that is being proposed, especially from a temporary standpoint, just want to say thank you, because this we really need help here on Ensign, and recognizing, I think as Jay mentioned, this is going to take a lot of resources from a lot of different people. And so we know that impacts different people in different ways. And I know from the Captain Johnson and other teams, we just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you again to all the members of the public who joined us and submitted comments. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you so much to our staff that have supported and made this virtual meeting possible tonight. And this meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening.